First, it was the name of America's favorite brand of syrup that needed to be changed after 130 years because a half a dozen people on Twitter complained about it. Then Eskimo pies, the famous ice cream bars, had to go after 100 years of having that name because some people deemed it derogatory to the Eskimos. Then, of course, Uncle Ben's rice changed to a more equitable brand. Equitable is another culture Marxist code word. Notice it's not about equality anymore, it's about equity, meaning non-white people get more rights, more money. Not equal treatment, they get better treatment. Then the names of schools had to be changed because some of the founding fathers, including Thomas Jefferson, owned slaves. And the Washington Redskins football team, of course, which then went by the generic name, the Washington football team, for 2 years until they finally figured out a new name and settled on the Commanders. But now it's the name of birds that are offending people. This from the Washington Post. Dozens of bird names honoring enslavers and racists will be changed. The American Ornithological Society says that it will alter the names of North American birds named after humans, starting with up to 80 of them. It turns out that some of the people who discovered various species of birds owned slaves 150 years ago, and somebody figured that out and started complaining about it, and so now the names of all those birds have to be changed. Get ready to say goodbye to a lot of familiar birds' names like Anna's hummingbird, Gamble's quail, Lewis's woodpecker, Berwick's wren, Bullock's oriole, and more. That's because the American Ornithological Society has vowed to change the English names of all bird species currently named after people, along with any bird names deemed offensive or exclusionary. We've come to understand that there are certain names that have offensive or derogatory connotations that cause pain to people, and that it is important to change those, to remove those as barriers to their participation in the world of birds. Nobody is going to give up bird watching because a couple birds were named after people that owned slaves 150 years ago. I guarantee that this was started by one person who was clicking through Wikipedia and then came across the biography of somebody who discovered one of the bird species and then read that they owned slaves, and then they got upset about it. One lunatic did this, so never underestimate the power of one dedicated person and the impact that they can have on the world, for good or for crazy. And speaking of equity, old Joe issued his first executive order this week regarding artificial intelligence, demanding that all of the AI companies build in black favoritism into the algorithms. One of the demands is that they must advance equity and civil rights by providing guidance to landlords and federal contractors to help avoid AI algorithms furthering discrimination and creating best practices on the appropriate role of AI in the justice system, including when it's used for sentencing, risk assessments, and crime forecasting, meaning AI, which is basically a pattern recognition system, is noticing a little too many facts about black people and crime. This brand new article in the Washington Post complains about it. This is how AI image generators see the world. These fake images reveal how AI amplifies our worst stereotypes. AI image generators like Stable Diffusion and DALL-E amplify bias in gender and race despite efforts to detoxify the data fueling these results. Artificial intelligence image tools have a tendency to spin up disturbing cliches, they say. Asian women are hypersexual, meaning beautiful. Africans are primitive. Europeans are worldly. Leaders are men. And prisoners are black. These stereotypes don't reflect the real world. They say, well, we don't call you fake news for nothing. They stem from the data that trains the technology, grabbed from the internet. These troves can be toxic because noticing patterns is racist and very anti-Semitic, of course. And so they're having to reprogram all of the AI systems in order to not actually produce accurate results. You probably saw the screenshots from tons of people testing ChatGPT when it first became public like a year ago, asking it certain questions to see how many uncomfortable truths it would tell, and then to show how those truths were soon filtered out because they were considered to be insensitive. And Sam Altman, the founder of ChatGPT, has various aspects of his identity, which he undoubtedly encoded into the bias of the algorithm regarding his orientation and his ethnicity. He's part of a ethnic group that has a country that you're not allowed to criticize, no matter how many innocent children in Gaza they bomb. And remember this clip of the first Prime Minister of Scotland, which is basically the President of Scotland, who is the Muslim child of Pakistani immigrants, complaining about how there are too many white people in Scotland. I won't show it again because I played it numerous times over the last few months. If you're a regular viewer of the channel, then you know what I'm talking about. But Elon Musk finally stumbled across it after the fantastic Twitter account End Wokeness posted it. And so Elon chimed in, calling him an obvious, blatant racist. Now it's making headlines from people attacking Elon, of course. This from the London Guardian. Backlash after Elon Musk labels Scottish First Minister Humza Yousaf racist. Well, I don't know how else you would describe somebody complaining that there are just too many of a particular ethnic group in their vicinity. And now here's the Prime Minister of Ireland complaining that there are too many white people there, too.
One thing I strongly agree with the Deputy on is the need to set a target to have a number of people from ethnic minorities in areas of the public service. We have a health service that's very diverse, although less so as you go up towards the senior positions. Not so much in the Gardaí, not so much in the Defence Forces, not so much in the education sector, as the Deputy mentioned, not at all in the civil service, which is very white, including the Department of Equality, for example, and that actually needs to change. So we need to have, I think, a target for people who come from ethnic minority backgrounds, but also dedicated recruitment campaigns to encourage people, because we do need a generation of young people growing up in Ireland who are people of colour to see black and brown school principals, judges, Keane Corla perhaps in the future. Who knows? Visibility and opportunity is really important.
Well, speaking of ethnic minorities, in San Francisco, black people make up only 5% of the population. But as this San Francisco Chronicle article notes, in a city where black people make up only 5% of the population, they account for 44% of, well, police confrontations the first half of this year. Far more than any other race or ethnicity. Of course, they're claiming that the police departments and police departments across the country are all racist, and that's the only reason why so many black people are arrested for the crimes that they commit. And following that line of logic, that would mean that police departments across the country are extremely sexist against men, because something between 88 and 90% of people who are arrested for murders in America are men. And so if everything's going to be 50-50, if everything's going to be equal according to the representation of that group, then obviously there is a systemic sexism problem going on in the police departments across the country. I have so much more to say about this and many other things that are related, that are detailed in my new book, which is coming Tuesday, November 7th. So stay tuned, because it's finally coming soon.
And that's all I'd really like to say.
What about your use of the N-word?
I use that word because they forced me into it.